And the one thing that I would bring to the forefront in this conversation is finding balance
Mhm.
because I didn't have much.
Mhm.
I didn't have much.
Mhm.
The sacrifices were deep and I was all in.
Mhm.
And as I have, matured and you all have gotten older and I can hear a little better or observe and see a little better into what might be more of a holistic approach to mothering. I would say that that area of balance is important.
Tell,
Not
tell
that
us,
you,
yeah, give us more, talk to us more about that. I think that it's very, so let's go a little bit below the surface on what you
right,
mean by balance. And I'll preface that with, first of all, I agree. And if there was one area in which I would say something that translated into my parenting that I'm still struggling with is the balance, right? Because you're so, again, I mentioned every decision made, career decisions, professional decisions, all these decisions that are made, really at the core of those decisions is I want to be here for my children. I'm not trying to be somewhere else for 10, 12 hours per day. I want to make sure that I'm available, that I'm accessible, that I'm supportive, that I'm at every game, at every performance, at every theater event, I'm there, sitting there with them. And the trade-off with that is, well, what about my own friendships? What about my own relationships that I'm neglecting so that I make sure I prioritize my children because I've learned, right? I've learned that that is how you express love, right? Like that is
right.
the essence of how you express love. So could you share maybe a bit more with you, maybe looking back on the 40 years of being a parent and seeing where maybe, you were, like the balance wasn't there and you were too
Right.
polar to one side of the argument there.
Well, definitely. The first thing that comes to my mind is self-care
Mhm.
and self-love. I did not during my parenting years pay I I wouldn't go as far as saying any attention, but as close to zero attention to myself, my self-love, self-care, as humanly possible. I did just the bare basics so that I would be available to you all and
Right.
could pour into you all. So I didn't pay attention to myself during those years. So what and oh my goodness, that goes definitely for me. It was health, and thank God I'm healthy. Thank God there weren't any health challenges or whatever. But I just didn't focus on those softer aspects of myself.
Right.
So the reason it comes to the forefront, I started realizing as you all got older the importance of that
Mhm.
because and here listen let me share this with you, and this I would venture to say is the first time that you've heard this
Okay.
from me, so here we go.
Let's do it.
Here we go. As you all got older, you all began from my place of experiencing it, treating me or interacting with me the way I had interacted with myself,
Mhm.
and I didn't like it. There wasn't, not that you didn't love me, not that you didn't care for me, but that sense of being cared for. But I had never modeled that self care.
Yeah.
I had never modeled it in front of you. So I started getting little wisps of that's mom. She's strong. She's a superwoman. She can walk. She can walk through walls. She can walk on water. And I was I was, but I'm still like
Yeah.
mom, and I'm soft, and I have feelings, and
And
I want.
I remember you starting to talk like that, and it was shocking to me. And it wasn't shocking because, oh, I didn't realize that you were a human being. It was, I think, to your point, I didn't realize that's what you needed. I didn't realize that was something that would fill up your tank, right? I thought that what
Right,
filled your tank was the, militant, purpose-driven, let's get from A to Z, forget the feelings. And I still feel this way. We've just had a conversation about this like not, a month ago. Let's get from point A to Z, forget the emotions, forget the feelings, forget the how you feel about it, how I feel about it. All that matters is success. All that matters is completing the mission, right? We're on a mission.
right,
was
Right.
how most of my childhood was. It just felt like a very long extended like military mission of sorts, right? So when I first started hearing you say things like, "Well, I'm your mom," and I'm sorry, I think you would say like, "Oh, I'm a girl." And it's like, okay.
Right.
Like, I mean, yes, you are, but you're a special type of girl. Like you're my mother. You're unique, right? And that I think that
Right.
really translates very well into how children see their parents, right? And until you are challenged as a child to see your parent as human, you do see them as superhuman. And that's, I think, across the board, right? And children come to the realization that their parents are not superhumans at different ages, at different times. And I think that, for other mothers in your position or similar positions who are potentially single parents and bearing the load and the weight and the responsibilities of so much without a partner next to them, and not to mention being a woman in this country, not to mention being a Black woman in this country, right? Like, there's so
Right.
many different nuanced experiences that a child sees. I think you can't sit down and just cry about it, right? So there's not really a space, especially in front of your children, who you want to be strong for and you want to do all these things for, which is maybe a whole other conversation about maybe you should cry and maybe you should break down and maybe you should show that that's a human thing to do.
Right.
But that's not taught to us at large. It's not really taught to us to do that or acceptable. But so in the child's eye, mom never cries about it. She doesn't complain about it. She just gets up and does it, and she is this superwoman. So I no longer see you as human. I no longer see you as frail. I no longer see you as needing anything, right?
Right.
Until you
Yes.
say it. Until you. So it's almost, there's this saying, I think, no, however you allow people to treat you, right? I'm paraphrasing.
You teach people to how to treat you by how you allow them to treat you.
Right, exactly. So
Yeah.
so we're confronted with, well, no, I want something different than what you're giving to me. It's like, oh, okay. Because then again, we reflect that love. I love you. So if you're telling me and articulating that what's been working in my mind is actually not working, well, now I need to change to give you what you're looking for.
And Stephen, the other part of that also is for those, folks are who are watching, some of them know us, some of them don't, but you have two younger brothers. So it was the three of you all. And in my mind, I was raising men, and I was raising men who needed to be strong, and they needed to be focused, and they needed to be resilient. And so I exemplified and modeled those things in front of you all. I didn't cry in front of you all. I didn't show weakness in front of you all because I knew what I wanted to produce out of my household. And I, even as we're having this conversation, I don't maybe if I did a spa day every once in a while, I don't know what I could have done during that time, because I did not, I was very cognizant of uh, who I was raising you all to be. So my, even my femininity and all, not that I was ever masculine, but I was militant. As you so eloquently said it, I've always embraced and loved my femininity, but those softer parts of me, I did not model in front of you all, because I didn't want you all to be feminine. I wanted you all to be masculine and men, and just be fully who you are. I guess that's the best way for me to say it. So I sacrificed all of the tenderness, and there wasn't a dad in the home. There wasn't, my spouse wasn't in the home. So had you all been in a two-parent household, you all would have gotten that from your father or from whoever my husband was. You would have seen this male figure in the household attending to my needs and asking me if I'm okay and being more tender with me. So I know that there are moms that are listening to this, and they come from an array of different experiences and an array of different backgrounds. And I know that there are a group of them who are listening to this going, oh, wow, that really makes sense. Because when your children are now adults, adults and then they turn around and they're interacting with you, we really have to be honest as moms. What did I model in front of them? So there was no point in me getting upset with you all because I owned the fact that you didn't see it. I
Right.
wasn't vulnerable in front of you all.
Right.
I was the what do you call it, the sergeant. I was the captain. I was running the whole ship, and I had to be tough as nails, the tender with you all to communicate that love for you all, but never allowing tenderness or softness to weaken what I perceived would have been weakening you all as men. So my saying, well, I'm a girl, it was for the first and foremost the shock value, like what? And thank you for communicating that did work. And to help you all to just kind of view me differently, that I'm not that soldier. That was my role
Mhm.
in raising you all, but that wasn't necessarily the totality or the fullness of who I am as a person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, bringing up the even like gender roles, or let's focus on like masculinity versus femininity, right? And the idea that, well, you know, I don't want my sons to be weak. So as their single mother, I can't necessarily find space to cry and show, emotions that we would categorize as maybe more feminine or to be
Right.
representative or symbolic of weakness is also a topic to discuss, right? Because I think that, I've always had a heart. I think you've seen me cry more than my wife has seen me cry.
Wow.
And I don't. One of my sons the other day, or maybe a few months ago, said, "Dad, do you ever cry?" I said, "Oh, well," and it caught me off guard that he was even thinking about that. And Ezra, and he says, "I said, well, why do you ask?" He's like, "Oh, because I've never seen you cry. Like you don't cry." And I recognize that that was from, right, like it's direct. All of these things are directly tied to something, right? So I don't
Right.
see it. I don't perceive it as necessarily a weakness, but I think that there is a trade-off, right? So if I am not comfortable showing emotion that is true to the situation that I might be in, then I have disconnected myself from a part of what makes me human, male or female.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
you may say, well, you can go overboard with that, right? And
Right.
be some range in which that's not healthy and it's not helpful. And if all you're just walking around an emotional mess and can't gain clarity and can't gain composure, yeah, right? Like there's always extremes to all of these things. But also
Right.
the other extreme is, well, you don't show any emotion at all and you don't cry ever, right? And things that hurt you, you just kind of, let sink in. And then where does that go and how does that impact you? So I just want to make
Right.
sure I said that out loud as well, because it's okay to cry as a man. It is okay
Oh
to
yeah.
to have that emotion. Although in full understanding of you as a single parent, right? Like I'd be more likely to cry in private with my wife than I
Right.
would be in front of like my entire family under the same circumstances that are leading me to crying in the first place, right?
Right.
So I can understand the pressure to still show or try to project strength, because that's really what we're doing, right? Because
Right.
whether we feel strong or not, we're just trying to project this image of, mom has got it taken care of. Don't worry about it. Be a child.
Right.
These are adult issues that I'm dealing with. I don't want to stress you with it. I don't want to put it on your shoulders or even have you think about it, right? I recall
Right.
being a child and maybe not that you were sharing necessarily things with me, but maybe I could just pick up on how you were feeling if you recall these things, and I like maybe it would, I don't know, like it would cause me to either get more quiet or something like that. I don't know if we ever had real conversations, but I feel like I remember you saying like, Stephen, you don't have to worry about that, or you don't have to think about that. Because as the eldest, right now, so thinking about like me being the eldest son and you being a single mom, there is a lot that's transferred or either transferred down to me or that I just decided to pick up in terms of a sense of responsibility. No, I'm not 10, 11, 12 years old going out and finding a job and trying to provide financially. but I am, cleaning the house and cooking and, doing as much as I
Doing the
thought I
laundry.
could do to
Yes.
lessen the load. And what's the trade-off? Well, I may lose some of my childhood. And like, I'm not thinking about, well, what's the next game I can play? What's the next toy I can go grab and
Right.
lose myself in my imagination because there are the thoughts of, well, how do I shoulder some of this weight so that my mom, who I know maybe not is sharing everything with me, but I can pick up the energy inside the house. She needs
Mm.
I want to be of service. Again, back to the love language. I want to show her that I love her, not just by going up and saying, "Mom, I love you," but go ahead and sleep in, Mom. I'll cook breakfast. Go and go sit down. I'll clean the house. Don't worry about it. You're yelling at my other brothers about cleaning up. Don't worry. I'll take care of all of it. So there's
Wow.
no need for you to feel stressed about it. Right. So there's also like this evolution within myself to understand where did those things come from? Because sometimes they're so much a part of you that you just think, oh, I'm just that way. That's just naturally who I am. And no, there were circumstances that led to that. You made decisions on some level, conscious, subconscious, whatever it was. You make decisions that then form who you become, right? And form who you are. So just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Well, and just to piggyback on what you just shared, I was very intentional about not referring to you or your brothers as being the men of the house. That was something that was real popular during my childhood and even you all's childhood. Older folks would say, where there was a single mom and especially the firstborn was or any son in the house, well, you're the man of the house. And that no, he's not the man of the house. He's a child. And to the best of my ability, I did not want that burden to be on you or on your brothers. I do believe that because you are the firstborn, your brothers, even to this day, I've noticed as I observe you all, you're the go-to. You are big brother. So that comes with so much responsibility in and of itself. But you being sensitive and in tune with what was going on. I mean, as a single mom, I struggled. We struggled. Our household struggled. So you would have had to have been deaf, dumb, and blind, not to see it and to perceive it and to know it. And then the way you are wired, what your bent was, is to solve it. You be a part of the solution, even though it wasn't articulated or as being an expectation or being your responsibility. You very much helped. You almost by default became that helper, my right hand. I remember you going and washing like 10 loads of clothes while I'm cleaning the house or cooking dinner or whatever. It just and we were so close in age too. So I had you really young. So it kind of fell to you to default by default. And there were times that I attempted to mitigate some of that pressure, some of that burden. But by the same token, I was also very intentional about you being responsible. Conversation could go so deep
Right.
because my mother was a beautician. I was raised in a beauty shop listening to women complain about their husbands too. So I didn't want my sons to be those men. I wanted you to be able to cook. I wanted you to be able to clean. I wanted you to be able to take responsibility. So there are so many different
I mean,
nuances.
every time you speak, there's more memories that are triggered, and of course, this conversation, like to your point, can go so many different directions. Hopefully, we get a chance to speak more about these things and talk and
Right,
unpack some of these things.
right.
The conversation about you being exposed to women at your mother's beauty salon. Like
Yeah.
I have early memories of being exposed to friends of yours and not knowing exactly what you were talking about, but getting at least the sense that it was about men who had done you wrong in some way, and me internalizing that I was not going to be one of those kind of men, right? I was
Right,
not going to be that person. I'm not going to play with any young lady's heart. I'm not going to, I'm not going to
right.
body along. This is all that all gets kind of digested and internalized and becomes a part of who we are. But I think overall, summarizing what we've discussed so far, you can see very clearly that there's this like multi-directional or bi-directional love between the two of us. And of course, we talk about my siblings as well, that really creates the foundation of our experience. It creates the foundation of our family. It creates the foundation of, what our day to day, right? So how you interact with me, how I interact with you, how you interact with my brothers, how they interact with you, my sister, so all these different interactions really become our life. Like that is our life.
Yeah.
Especially when we're all in one place and we're young and, we haven't graduated from high school yet or gone off to college yet. Like that is what our life really is. So what I'm curious about in moving the conversation forward is your thoughts on how all of that evolves as then your children start to move out, right? So starting with me, right? So I graduated from high school when I was 16 years old. Um, didn't go to college right away, right? So I was still in the house until what? I was in the house really until like 20. I was 20 years old when I moved out the summer before I turned 21 at UCLA.
Mm.
So I'm in the house for another 5 years basically, but pretty much, I'm working. We have you can tell more about it, but you have a school at that time, and I was very independent, right? So I get on the bus and just go off and go to Santa Monica and go to the beach and go to these different places. And I'm curious because I don't think we've ever really talked about this, but how that transition felt to you as a parent, because now our love language in a way, at least how it's expressed begins to shift. And that's what every parent goes through at some point. I will go through that at some point as my children get older. Every parent kind of sees this evolution of how they express love and experience love with their child changes over time as that child gets older and as that child seeks to launch from the home, right? Seeks to leave the home and be maybe away from the home more than they are in the home, to the point where maybe you see them less and less over time because they're building their own life away from you. So, any thoughts there?
Oh, yes, I have tons of thoughts. So, one of the things, you and I had a conversation during that process, and I said, Stephen, I don't hear from you. I don't hear from you. And your response, and I believe this is the way you said it. You, uh, in essence, you said, well, that means that you did a good job. That means that I'm independent. I'm out here and you did a good job. I'm not calling you and from a need perspective. And I it took a process. I don't know if I let me slow down. I'm not certain that even at this point, I'm 100% thrilled with that whole process because having poured my entire life into my children, that closeness, that the bond, the things that we endured together, there's such a bond between us that as the distance was being created, not that the love changed, but the distance, that emptiness, I felt it. I felt it, and uh, it was very uncomfortable. And from time to time, still can be. And you can attest to this. There are times I'll just call you. I just want to see your face.
Right.
Get on FaceTime. I want to talk, and I just look at you and smile. And you're like, you
Okay, Mom.
can't spend that much time in close relationship with anyone and then not grieve almost. There's a grief that comes along with that. So I had to learn to be okay with these next stages that
Yep.
came along as you all were launching out of the house. And it was a rough journey. It was rough on me. And one of the things that, especially with you, impacted me the heaviest, and I don't believe we've ever spoken about this, but I saw you and always viewed you. Your personality, you are always very responsible, very focused, very sober, living your life in a manner that would bring honor and respect and almost some might say doing what's expected. And I think maybe you've even used those words before. So I'm watching you going out in life and implementing the prayer life and the faith walk and the all the things that were deposited in you was that feeling that I wish I could have given you more so that you, as you started your life, that would not have had to have been so independent. I wasn't, it hurt me that I wasn't in a position to do more for you, be there for you more through that process. I was grateful that you had the tools and that I had raised you to be able to hear from God and to step out, and you created the path in front of you and do miraculous, and you would call and share these phenomenal things with me and I would rejoice with you. But there was also a pain there because I wanted to be in a position where if you did call and say, well, mom, I need XYZ, or if we were having a conversation, and this did happen many, many times, oh, I'm looking for this, I need that. And me not being able to respond to that was very painful and very difficult for me personally. Yeah. So that whole process of becoming or moving toward empty nesting and going through that grief, loss of relational dynamics, our relationship changing and all was very challenging and can be very, very challenging, especially maybe with the firstborn, because you tend to be so close to well, at least in our experience, you and I were extremely, extremely close.
Yeah, I think that, I've thought about that later in my own life. Definitely wasn't thinking about that, in my early 20s when I first left home and was at UCLA and had my own place and all that and trying to create my own life. It really at that point felt like a passing of the baton, right? I felt like, again, the greatest form of love and respect that I could show you would be to take everything you taught me and to expand on it and to build something amazing and to, that's why I would report back and just tell you the successes. I wouldn't tell you so much about the failures. I wouldn't tell you so much about the needs as much unless you asked me specifically what was going on. Otherwise, I would try to keep that to myself because in a way, I think most kids generally who want to the way their love for their parent evolves as they get older is to show like you did do a good job. You did do a good job in raising me. Like, look what I'm doing with it. Look at the platform that you've helped to create for me. I want to take it even further, right? And the flip side of that is, well, we could also say that the bond that was created was a bond of struggle, right? And that bond was part of that, not all of it, because there's love and there's all the things we've talked about so far, but there's also the flip side, which is, well, you were a single mom, right? And we lived where we lived in an impoverished community, and we had these experiences that were also part of our bonding together. So as soon as there was an opportunity for me to do something that could potentially alleviate that, I wanted to sprint in that direction. And that direction, if you think about it carefully, means leaving you.
All right. All right. You've made it through the second, we'll just call it an episode of this powerful conversation with my son, Stephen. Tell us how you felt, what questions you have, what comments. We want to hear your commentary. Man, I don't know if you could tell or not, but as he asked those questions and I shared more, then he would think of more things to ask and to probe in. It became abundantly clear to both he and I that there was so much to unpack. There was no way to have this type of conversation in a limited amount of time, and we didn't want to overwhelm folks for Mother's Day by doing like 10 hours or what have you. But let us know your thoughts.